industry is today about 165 billion. If you take fashion and lifestyle in India, all categories, growing at about 11%. A fourth of it is branded, right? It's only about a fourth that's branded. If you take online in the industry, it's about $4 to $5 billion. So it's about a 4% penetration. Most other parts of the world, online penetration is between 15 and 20%. China is bigger and greater, it's closer to 30%. And I feel we're at the very beginning of a very large progression in India, because beyond the 30 cities, actually mall spaces start to thin down, or even the top 40 cities. And therefore, like many other things, I believe that we will leapfrog and actually get to e-com. So in 5 years, e-commerce will be between $20 and $25 billion, right? Omnichannel, which is a combination and a buzzword, but it's around using the common experiences and technology as a backbone, will probably be another 5. So there's a reasonable chance that almost half of the organized retail in the country will be somehow powered through technology and e-commerce, which I think is a very different scene from what it is now. Most times, all of us human beings don't recognize exponential curves because it's hard to understand, because it actually goes exponentially. We are in the middle of one of those exponential curves, and it's hard to actually see that, but I think 10 years from now, when we look back, we will say we were actually at a time of a major transformation. I wanted to talk about 3 things with that as background. The first is just how's the Indian consumer evolving and what's changing about them. Second, I wanted to talk about role of technology, both in terms of the business and in terms of the consumer. And third, implications, therefore, for all of us, whether we're offline, online, in the fashion space. So let me start with the consumer. Some stats. India today, or India actually over the next 3 years, will have more than 600 million Gen Z consumers. These are people, born post-1996, right? That, by the way, is double the population of the US. Second fact, today we have a $1.3 billion population. 500 million of them are online in some form. They access the internet in some form. 230 million to 240 million access it through 2G and 3G, right? So these are the WhatsApp users. Third fact, these Gen Z customers spend more of their time on the internet and online through their mobile phone than they do TV. So very, very different audience, very different way in which they actually understand brands, very different way in which they think about retail, because they've actually grown up with the internet. So it's dramatically different. So you have a lot of these folks, it's growing rapidly, and they spend a lot of their time actually accessing content online. If I look at Myntra itself, today we have, Myntra and Jabong have about 11 million customers. In India today, about 60 million consumers shop online. So like I was telling you, there's 500 million people who access the internet, 230 million who have WhatsApp, 60 million who shop today. In 5 years from now, I expect that number will go up to almost be 300 million who shop online in the country, right? So it will actually grow exponentially again in the next 5 years. The way they perceive brands is very different. I think the days where, people actually look to brands and the high priestess of fashion looking to tell them what the trends are gone. People actually follow trends on Instagram. People want to know what their friends like and don't like. And therefore, it's very dramatically different in terms of how brands are getting built. Because they're getting built digitally. They're getting built in a way which is very, very different compared to anything else that you've seen. So consumers and consumer evolution is changing. Incidentally, by the way, even in the internet today, the first 100 million customers that came on the internet were mostly men. They were mostly urban. They were mostly English-speaking. The next 100 million who have come online, by the way, are mostly vernacular, a lot more women, right? And they access the internet and do very different things with the internet than they used to do before. When you first come on the internet, you use it for entertainment. Then you get on social media. Then you buy online digital products. You buy tickets. And then finally, you start buying products. That used to take 3 years to 4 years in the life of a consumer. That's now taking 2, and I suspect that it'll go down to 1, which is another acceleration that's actually happening. So if you think about all this and say, what is technology doing? I want to give you a few examples. I mean, these are Myntra examples, but they could be examples from anywhere else as well. In Myntra, if we think about technology, we think about it in almost every way. Marketing, service, how we think about fashion, brands get built. I'll talk to you about marketing. The classic marketing used to be very much of ATL, BTL marketing, where you made one video, and then you pushed it out through digital channels, you pushed it out through the TV, you pushed it out through print. In our last 2 brand campaigns, we've had 100,000 videos. We worked with a Silicon Valley startup to actually customize it so that each video, there were 100,000 different variants of the video. It all got personalized. So if you were in Chennai and you were a woman and you had shopped on Myntra, the video that you saw would be dramatically different than the person in Delhi who's actually never shopped on Myntra and is a man. That's the most basic. But this will continue to evolve, and it will become more and more and more personal. So marketing will become more personalized. The second is service. So today, Myntra actually delivers to 19,000 zip codes. But it's actually not a very personalized experience. We don't take into account when you want the product delivered. We don't take into account whether you're always going to be a cash-on-delivery customer or whether you're actually going to do something very different. We don't know whether you like your deliveries faster than promised or on time or later, right? And there are customers who want all 3. We're again using lots of AI and big data to figure out how do we actually think about this very differently. I'll give you an example. Fashion is a classic high-width, low-depth category. It's very hard to manage the inventory, whether it's stores or whether it's online. But we're using lots of big data to say, where would I actually place the inventory? So in the last very large sale that we had, which is a peak event, which we call our end-of-reason sale, we actually shipped product before the customers ordered. So just think about that. Before the customers ordered, we shipped out products. Now, we didn't get all of it right, but we got 95% of it right. So we essentially could deliver products faster than anyone else because we had already shipped the product, because our predictive analytics and AI engine said, here is the probability of somebody buying something. Likewise, customer care, call centers are changing dramatically. Now, call centers are able to actually use AI and natural language processing to understand the tonality of the customer, and you know whether the customer is getting angrier or is getting less angry. And you're able to actually provide input to the call center agent to say, what do you do differently? And I'll finish up with the last example on technology, which is probably the hardest, which is, if you think about design, it's the most creative of spaces. It's the one that I think where I think you almost feel like technology will come in the last. At Myntra, we have actually our first designerless brand. It's all powered by AI, and the brand's called Moda Rapido. It's doing $10 million of business and growing. But what's happened is machine vision and computing power have become so good and have become so much better than what they used to be. And if you have enough AI algorithms and data, you're now able to create T-shirts. You're able to create jeans. You're able to create shoes. You're able to create kurtas. So all of that is happening right now, right? And that is actually, there's a session later by some of my Myntra colleagues on both the consumer and on the Vorta platform, which is our AI platform, and you can hear more about it. But it's interesting because, even the core of design is now getting influenced by technology. I don't think it'll be replaced by technology. I don't think it'll replace creativity. But I certainly think you can make better decisions, right? And you can actually manage the business dramatically better. So in conclusion, I wanted to say 3 things. First, the Indian consumer is changing. Their ability to access information online and able to access commerce online will be dramatic over the next 5 years. I think, by the way, omni-channel, which I haven't spoken about, will very much be a part of this because I do think those will start to merge in terms of experiences, and I think you should have one view of the customer wherever they are. Second, I think technology is actually growing exponentially in fashion and lifestyle, and most times we don't recognize exponential curves in the industry as human beings because our biases are much more short-term. Therefore, it's hard to see the change so rapidly. Third, I really believe if you have to go actually and capture this customer, whether you're an offline player or an online player, it's important to embrace technology in almost every process of yours, right? So that you start to think very differently and build a DNA in your business that is very much technology forward. And that doesn't matter whether you've been there for 100 years, for 5 years, for 1 year. How do you get the technology DNA into what you do? And everything that you do is really important.